Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. So the video or the clip that you watched now is just it's an employer DVD that we present to our employers, mostly in Africa. I just want to really tell you our story in the next 20 minutes or so, but about 15 years ago, my husband and I both had our own business. We were well established on our way in terms of our careers, and that was the path that we felt was for us. And one day I happened upon Isaiah 58. And Isaiah 58 broke my heart for the poor. And the consequence of that is I became frustrated after that. I became frustrated with three things. I was frustrated by the way people work. I was frustrated by the attitude of people, the work ethic, the cashier who sits there and takes no pride in their work and takes your goods and just swipes them and sends them off to the packer. I was frustrated by the poor. I was frustrated by the fact that so much was being done for the poor, but nothing was changing. I was frustrated by the fact that we had people in church who were unemployed. How does that work? So out of that frustration, and in summary of sort of 12 years later, what do? We want to break the cycle of poverty. We break the cycle of poverty, but encased in Work for a Living Center, where we teach entrepreneurial and job-related skills, but at the same time, we want to teach a biblical worldview. The end result for us is we want to put spirit-filled, discipled people in the workplace who understand excellence. And when we started 11 or 12 years ago, we wanted to help the poor, and I helped the poor. I helped them to find jobs. I helped them to start businesses. We found funding. We gave them skills. And we failed with every single person that we tried to help. We learned quickly, through much trial, error, and failure, that skills are in abundance. The poor actually have resources. What a surprise that was. The poor were still, despite all of this, poor, unemployed, and desperate. The money that we gave them was used up. The businesses that we helped them start failed, despite access to funds, and we were absolutely devastated by this. We started to learn that we could not throw money at the poor. We could not give the poor, just give them opportunities. And nor could we get them saved in church and say, God bless you. Because the end result was the church was full of broken or power-hungry people. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the poverty mindset, which says, I am poor, I will always be poor, I cannot change, entitlement, dependency, and a lack of excellence in your makeup, in the way that you were raised, in what you are used to. Those four things are a powerful and toxic combination. What's the end result? The end result is people who sit at home in any country where we have poverty, hopeless, waiting for someone to do something for them with their hand out or give them something to change their lives. So what did we learn along the way in this journey? What did we learn? We learned firstly that you have to deal with a mindset. And please understand, our language doesn't come from anything that we've read. Our language comes from what we've seen along the road. So we've got to deal with a mindset first. We've got to deal with that poverty mindset. We've got to deal with what is entrenched as I think it's Mr. Sampson said yesterday, we've got to deal with what is entrenched in the way people were raised. That mindset of I can't, I'm not able to. Only then, once we've dealt with it, are we actually able to deal with the physical poverty. What did we see is this mental poverty, this poverty mindset. We saw the poverty mindset as, I'm poor, I will always be poor, I cannot change. I'm owed something. I'm owed something. Somebody needs to make it right. And I'm waiting for you to come and make it right. And until you come and make it right, I'm not going to do anything to change my circumstances, because guess what? I am owed. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm owed by you, the West. I can't. I'm a victim. Poverty is done to me. by other people who have. I do whatever my neighbor does because that is normal. How is it that in a community, we have seen two communities separated by a road? In one community, everybody's working. A road apart, nobody is working. Why is that? Because in the community where nobody's working, it's normal not to work. So I look around me, I see nobody working. It was entrenched in my upbringing, and therefore I don't work. But a community right next door is working, and that is the norm. Stuff will make me rich. I need to wait for opportunities. I need to wait for people to give me stuff. I'm not educated, therefore I can't. There is no hope. Nothing is going to change. What is the end result of this? The end result of this in our world from a work perspective is I had an international retailer who does a lot of work in Africa and a lot of developing nations. They're a supermarket, a retailer. And they said to me, if they want 20 cashiers to come to work on a Saturday, they have to employ 40 just to get 20 to come to work. How does that work? It goes against everything that we taught about the poor. We are raised, I think, to think that if we give people opportunities, they're going to take them. They're not going to take them because that mindset is just so strong. So we started dealing with a mental poverty, the poverty mindset, and presenting actually a new normal to our students. And a lot of that mental poverty, that thinking, was broken. And people started to believe in themselves, and people started to stand up. But then we realized that if you unlock the poverty mindset, you are left with a vacuum in terms of thinking. And if you do not replace that vacuum with the gospel, the end result will be an arrogant, competent, self-reliant nation. Or an arrogant, competent, self-reliant community. And if one does go and look at a lot of developed nations, what does one have? A lot of the time, an arrogant, competent, self-reliant nation. Because the gospel, where the poverty mindset has been dealt with and people believe, but I can. If the gospel is not replacing this, then who do they depend on? Themselves. And if you're competent, well then you're going to be okay. So we started saying, what is the answer? And we realized that the answer is a biblical worldview, a new way of doing things. And once we've unlocked that poverty mindset and replaced it with the gospel, then and then only, and discipled people, then and then only can we start dealing with the physical poverty. So through much learning, we started developing a program that taught a biblical worldview based on the excellence in the gospel, not just to get people out of poverty. How is that good enough? Based on the excellence of the gospel. And drafted it in a way where it started impacting people in their lives, in their families, in their pockets. And the focus was to get people to change themselves from within, to see a new normal, and to help themselves rather than be helped. And then we started seeing a real practical and tangible change in their physical poverty as a result. We found that 3 things need to be dealt with. And again, this is not based on anything academic. It's based on just what we've seen. There are 3 things that need to be dealt with: the mindset, the spiritual, and the physical poverty. But we found that in many countries, a lot of the NGOs, the government initiatives, or even the churches, they deal with one of those, and sometimes they deal with them in an incorrect way. So they'll deal with the physical poverty, and they say, okay, we're going to go and teach people to do business. But we teach people to do business without holistic discipleship. Or they say, we're going to deal with the spiritual, and we're going to get people saved and into church. Well, what's the consequence of that? You've got Africa that's been evangelized, I think, 2.5 times over. It doesn't solve the problem. Or they deal with a mindset, but it's about self-esteem and self. It's not about breaking that mindset of I can and I have to. So our solution is we've got work for a living centers where we change this mindset. We teach people skills, and when we link them to opportunities, and the opportunities are either in the form of jobs or alternatively business. And every 2 weeks at our Work for a Living Center, at any Work for a Living center that we've got around the world, at any given established Work for a Living center, we've got 20 to 30 young people every 2 weeks from January to December waiting for the next Work for a Living program. Why? Because the world knows faith. People have faith in all sorts of things. The world knows love. People love each other. But the world doesn't have hope. And when hope is presented, the people come running. We ask the students, how did you know about this program? Whether it's in Kenya, whether it's in the Philippines, wherever it is. How did you hear about this? They say, my auntie was here. My auntie is working. My brother was here. My brother has a job at a security company. My daughter was here. My daughter now has her own business. So what is our model? And this is the model that we are wanting and are duplicating. Effectively, students come to our center through word of mouth, as I said earlier. They then come into the Work for a Living program, which is a 2.5-week foundational program, and there for us, the gold happens. That's where it happens. We teach people, firstly, from a secular perspective, interviews. We start going into basic foundational business. We teach people work ethic, that you need to be excellent in everything that you do. You need to make yourself valuable to an employer. The way to get ahead in the workplace is to be valuable. We teach communication, time management, professionalism. And then from there, we start getting more into worldview and the real stuff that changes people's lives. We present the gospel, and the end result is changed lives. From there, each center has a not-for-profit job center. We select the best students. We make them available to the employers at no cost. The Work for a Living program speaks to the problems that employers have. What's the consequence? Employers want our students. Secondly, we've got a business school where we teach people not to start a business, to grow a business. We do not want people having business and dying poor. What is the point of it? Thirdly, every center's got a skills center. The skills center, and that depends on the opportunities in that specific town, village, or city. If it's in a city, we've got programs like that video showed, like barista training and hospitality and so on. But if it's more, or cashier or merchandising or office admin, but if it's in a village, a lot of the time it's business, and a lot of the time it's agriculture. So those are the various skills that can be included. And then the last branch, if I can call it, is education, where a lot of our students are going back to school and finishing school or going on to study further. We partner with Trinity Education, where they provide digital boot camps to our students who actually want to go a step further. And today we've got a model. In 2017, we had close to 4,500 students going through our program, all unemployed and desperately poor. People have been, I think our one student, 13 years unemployed. And I think within 2 weeks of completing Work for a Living, she found employment. Why? Because we helped her know. Because something changed in her and she realized I can. 247 new businesses were started. About 2,500 of our students are employed that we know of, but we know that it's probably closer to 75% of our students. 240 went back to school, and what we are delighted by is that 2,041 students gave their lives to Jesus, who were actually very hostile towards the gospel and are in the process, as far as possible, of being discipled. So for us, the result must be change. The result must be change. It's not a hit and miss. We're not presenting a program to give people certificates. The result must be hope. The result must be action. Action in the form of jobs, action in the form of a business that is started, or action in the form of I've gone back to school. The result must be an understanding that I'm owed nothing. It's up to me, that I'm not going to blame anybody for my circumstances, that it's not normal to sit at home, that I can and have to work, that I've got to be excellent in everything that I do, that I've got to self-manage and I need to be valuable if I'm working, that you need to understand finance. And I'm talking about complex finance, compound interest, things like that the poor are able to learn. They don't need to hold somebody's hand to manage their money. They need to be educated. How to grow a small business, provide for their families, and we want to see generations changed. How has generations changed? Through the kingdom, the gospel, the whole of it. including the mindset that sets people free and breaks the yoke of slavery according to Isaiah 58. Is this not the kind of fasting I've chosen? To loose the chains of injustice, untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke. Not to give people something or do something for them, but to set people free. Our view, ladies and gentlemen, is if people are fully discipled, surely they will understand that they have to work. If you can't get a job, we tell our students, don't moan, start a business. You can and have to work. When our students grasp that, it's like, why did I not think of that? It's simple, because it's just not part of their growing up. We realized that we had to be sensitive to what the poor needed to change their lives, not what the poor needed. And to do that, we needed to be sensitive to God's Spirit. So in essence, what do we do? And we'll share more about this in the workshop tomorrow afternoon. We challenge their normal, present a new reality, and present the truth. For example, in terms of challenging their normal, we tell our students there are lots of opportunities, and there are lots of opportunities. In a country like South Africa, where we have 47, if not close to 55%, if not close to 65% unemployment with the youth, there are lots of opportunities. Lots of opportunities. We often have more jobs than we have students, and we have a lot of students coming through our centers. But presenting, and so the challenging their normal is to change that concept that there are no jobs. Then in terms of presenting a new reality, we tell them, listen, you've got to sometimes start at the bottom. You've got to start at the bottom. You've got to start as a packer. You've got to start as a cleaner. But that doesn't mean you're going to end up there forever. But people don't always want to start there. And in terms of presenting the truth, the next step is the truth. Honor your boss, and you will be honored. Care for your orchard, and you will enjoy its fruit. What makes work for a living work? We believe we deal with a poverty mindset. We deal and make people work to a standard of excellence and introduce excellence to them. We introduce a new standard to them. We teach a biblical worldview, because at the end of the day, that's what changes people. We try and instill discipline into our students. If our students arrive at our classes, which start at 8 o'clock, at 8:02, where the doors are closed, they go home. Because if they go into the workplace and they arrive at the workplace at 8:02, what's going to happen? They're going to get dismissed. And how does that help the situation? Action, jobs, business, education, gospel and discipleship. And all of this is done in the confines. We try and partner with a local church so that our students can be discipled. We had a lady come to us a little while ago. She and her 3 children had been unemployed for 3 or 4 years. She came to the program. Within 6 weeks, she was employed. She sent her daughter. Within 4 weeks, her daughter was employed. She sent her other 2 daughters. And within 5 weeks, within a period of 3 months, the whole family was economically active and working. Why is that? Because we helped them? No, it's not because we helped them. Because something changed and they realized, I can do this. And I can do this through Christ. We had a young man come to us in 2009, did the program, came to us and said, I want to volunteer, yeah, I'll do anything. He works now, he runs his own center, and he works as a developer where he trains trainers to actually start centers across Africa. We have students who are coming back to our Work for a Living centers and employing other students into the businesses that they've started. We had a woman come the other day. She came into the class and she couldn't speak a word of English. And we did a little video of her a little while ago, and she said, you know, people used to look at me and say, I'm the uneducated one. I was a car guard. A car guard in South Africa is like, you actually just begging. She now works as the housekeeping supervisor at a 5-star game lodge in South Africa, simply because something has changed, and she's been given an opportunity, and she's grabbed it, and the Lord has been glorified. So, our Work for a Living centers is what we want to duplicate. They're easy to start, easy to duplicate. We effectively work with social entrepreneurs. We a lot of the time raise from our classes, take our students, we see the gold, we select the best, and we raise them up to start their own work for a living centers in their communities. We work with volunteers who start centers, we work with missionaries who start centers, we work with NGOs who start centers in their communities, and we normally partner with churches, as I said, because for us, at the end of the day, we're not called to get people saved, we are called to disciple people. So where are we? We've got about 50 centers in closing. Across Africa, we've started in Cardiff in Wales, because there's a lot of poverty there. We started recently in Denver, Colorado, which we're very excited about. And we are, for the first time, running a Train the Trainer in the United States, in Carson, Los Angeles, in August. So we're really excited about this because we know that the program works wherever there's poverty or need. You know, what are we trying to do? What is our vision? Our vision is, ladies and gentlemen, we want a work for a living center. The Lord has given us a tool that works for the poor. Not because I say so, because He's given us a tool that seems to work. And we want to work for a living center in every city, in every town, in every village, wherever there is poverty or need. And is that a big dream? Yes, it's a ridiculous dream. But you know what? We serve a God who far outdreams us. So we will definitely be going for it. If we can take an unemployed young man or young woman and change their worldview, and teach them the love of the Lord. Teach them that they can and have to work. And then give them the skills and link them to economic opportunities. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that we can change a community. Can one change a community? Can one change a nation? By God's grace, we can. Thank you very much.